Oh, we're back. Oh, we're back. Oh, we're back. Yes, everybody. Are you ready? 1:30. Oh, we're exploding, baby. We're exploding. This is it. I was literally rushing and running to come and see you, fam. All right. Let's see if YouTube is awake. Let's see if YouTube is awake for what's to come. I gotta do it. 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 I gotta do. I look what I look. I gotta do this right now, everybody. Minutes away, guys. Minutes away, everybody. Here it comes, everybody. Everybody, drop a freaking like right now. Send it to the roof. Drop a like and pump it to the sky. Let's go. Was rushing and driving and I made it. Let's go! Pump it!
Ladies and
Dangerous
gentlemen,
Dave, tell everybody, tell TJ, tell Cheaper, tell everyone, tell JB that we're here right now. I want them all here right now. Immediately. Get it up. Let's go. Send it, everybody. Let's make money. Close to the house. I feel alive. How y'all doing, everybody? Drop a like right now immediately. We're about to watch the CFTC Innovation Advisory Committee right now, August 20th. I believe Donald J. Trump also is going live in another stream, but we're here for this. We'll see, we'll change, but this is it, everybody. This is all for crypto. CFTC is live.
Everyone. Welcome to the inaugural meeting of the CFTC's Innovation Advisory Committee. I am Michael Pasalacqua and have the privilege of serving as the designated federal officer, in addition to leading the agency's Innovation Task Force. I officially call the meeting to order. The caliber of people joining us in the room reflects Chairman Selig's commitment to bringing the very best minds to the table. And we are grateful for the viewpoints each of you will bring to the meeting today. We are also fortunate to have a committee chair who brings a unique perspective to the position, previously as acting chair of this agency and continuing to serve our nation's markets at the highest level. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce Chairman of the Innovation Advisory Committee, Walt Lukin, for his opening remarks.
Well, thank you, Michael. I have to admit, it feels pretty good to be at the front dais of the CFTC again after all these years. So this is a pleasure. And I recognize Scott O'Malley, a former commissioner as well, in the audience. But thank you, Michael, and welcome to the inaugural meeting of the Innovation Advisory Committee. And thank you to Chairman Selig for entrusting me with this role, as well as I commend him for his leadership in advancing the innovation agenda of our industry. And obviously, thank you to Michael and the CFTC staff for putting all of this together. Now, looking around the room, it's clear that the innovation agenda of our industry is alive and well, whether it's traditional derivatives markets or new asset classes like prediction markets and crypto. I think when it comes to innovation, we can all agree that we must stop distinguishing between traditional and new market types. Everyone in this room fiercely competes and innovates. And it's this entrepreneurial DNA that has driven growth and progress in our industry for over 50 years and will continue to drive innovation in the years ahead. Now, we're in a period of extraordinary growth and expansion in our industry. In 2003, there were 16 designated contract markets regulated by the CFTC. Today, there are 30 designated contract markets with 17 pending approval. In 2023, there were 2,100 traded contracts regulated by the CFTC. Today, there are 6,700, triple the number. Now, I believe that the Commodity Exchange Act, the operating system of our industry, is one of the main reasons for this burst of activity. Since the enactment of the Commodity Futures Modernization Act of 2000, Congress has charged this agency with promoting responsible innovation and fair competition. Lawmakers provided the CFTC with flexible tools to effectuate this mandate, from principles-based regulation to self-certification to exemptive authority. Importantly, Congress included the terms fair and responsible in the CFTC's mission to ensure these public goals did not come at the expense of the safety and soundness of the markets or the protection of customers. Now, we are here today not to advocate for one technology, business model, or market participant. We're here to provide practical advice to the Commission that is rooted in real-world experiences. Good policy is informed policy, and informed policy comes from listening to the people who operate, use, and build these markets every day. Now, that's all of you. So my job as chair is to keep us on time and on topic, and I apologize in advance if in that role it requires me to cut off participants. I only take a small amount of pleasure in doing so. So I commend Chairman Seelig for hosting this timely and relevant gathering, and I'll turn it over to him for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Walt, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural meeting of the Innovation Advisory Committee. Just following our fantastic meeting yesterday at the White House with the president, he kicked us off, and we're all so grateful for his leadership. You know, he took us back to the Oval after the meeting, and he asked me, which is the more powerful agency? Is it the SEC or the CFTC? And I don't know, looking around at you all in this room and everything that you've built and our very broad definition of commodity, I told him it might be the CFTC these days, but no, I'm just kidding. But we're really glad to get to work with Chairman Atkins, of course, at the SEC, and I think combined, our strength is really quite voluminous. So we've assembled some of the world's greatest builders, thinkers, and entrepreneurs here in our nation's capital to engage in a series of conversations about where our financial markets are headed and what role America, in particular, this agency, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, or CFTC, will play in shaping that future. And before we get started, I'd like to take a step back and discuss why American leadership on this new frontier of finance is so important. But before I do, I must provide the standard disclaimer that the views I express today are my own as chairman and don't necessarily reflect those of the commission. For more than half a century, the CFTC has stood at the center of innovation in America's financial markets, helping ensure that innovation can flourish while markets remain fair and resilient. When President Gerald Ford signed the Commodity Futures Trading Commission Act into law in 1974, America's derivatives markets were being transformed by an explosion of interest in a wide range of novel instruments, from contracts on currencies to petroleum allocations to Ginnie Mae certificates. Despite federally regulated commodity exchanges having existed since the 20s, prior law only covered contracts on enumerated commodities like wheat, corn, cotton, and rice. The balance of contracts were subject to the same patchwork of state laws that had prompted Congress to institute federal commodity laws in the first place. As a result, America was falling behind. The history of America's earliest commodity exchange, the Chicago Board of Trade, has been described as a saga of, quote, fending off countless politicians on both the state and national level, all of which seemed intent on shutting the board down, end quote. In 1848, a group of merchants established the board above a flour store to enforce a set of codes and rules for buying, weighing, and grading commodities and to arbitrate disputes among traders. By 1859, a convention emerged whereby parties who had committed to buy or sell a commodity could make or receive a payment to or from the other party based on the change in price of the commodity, instead of making or taking physical delivery. They standardized a promise, a measure of grain, a price, a date, so that a farmer hundreds of miles away could lock in her season before the first frost, and so that a miller could plan his year without relying solely on hope to make ends meet. These arrangements came to be known as futures contracts. The response to this innovation in the markets was remarkably similar to what we've seen today with some of the innovation in our markets. As these early markets began to take shape, state lawmakers across the country moved to subject these exchanges to a wide range of state anti-gaming and anti-bucket shop laws. One lawmaker urged federal action, exclaiming that, quote, the grain gamblers have made the exchange building in Chicago the world's greatest gambling house. Karl Marx himself called exchanges, quote, gambling parlors where little fish are swallowed by the sharks, end quote. The same rhetoric has been used to delegitimize and undermine our markets for more than a century. But when lawmakers considered legislation to amend the Commodity Exchange Act, or the CEA, and codify once and for all a comprehensive federal regulatory framework for commodity exchanges, they recognized then what we know to be true today. Regulation and innovation must go hand in hand. Without clear rules of the road, builders, visionaries, and entrepreneurs always leave for brighter shores. So Congress established a federal system of market regulation designed to be future-proof and created a new federal agency, the CFTC, and provided it with exclusive jurisdiction over commodity derivatives markets. Lawmakers also included a statutory mandate that the agency promote responsible innovation. Recognizing that virtually anything, tangible or intangible, might serve as the underlying for a derivative contract, lawmakers defined the term commodity to include all goods and articles and services, rights, and interests that may be the subject of a derivatives contract. This included events, contingencies, and incidents that take place which are beyond the control of the contracting parties. Within an essentially unbounded field of potential commodities, exchanges were free to innovate and offer a wide range of novel financial instruments under a single regulatory framework. The breadth of the definition of commodity makes clear that lawmakers intentionally chose not to fragment regulatory authority over commodity derivatives markets based on the underlying commodity. They reasoned that, quote, the nature of the underlying commodity is not an adequate basis to divide regulatory authority. Instead, lawmakers opted for simplicity and ease of administration, explaining that the fact that a futures contract market does not fit into the traditional mold, where there are both hedging and price discovery functions, should not be the determining factor in whether a contract is regulated by the CFTC. These contracts were now required to trade on CFTC-registered exchanges, known as designated contract markets, or DCMs. DCMs would be overseen by the CFTC, but also operate as self-regulatory organizations that would serve as the first line of defense in policing rules to protect market integrity. This patchwork of state laws that once undermined the ability of exchanges to operate around the country would no longer apply to these federally regulated exchanges. With clear rules of the road, pioneering exchange operators set out into the vast frontier of finance and designed many of the contracts that are popularly traded today, like weather, interest rate, and equity derivatives. After observing the evolution of these markets under the CFTC's supervision for some decades, Congress made additional modifications to the CEA to further future-proof the framework with the Commodity Futures Modernization Act of 2000, or the CFMA. We're pleased to have with us today former Acting Chairman Walt Lucan, who was heavily involved in the development of the legislation as an advisor to then Senate Agriculture Committee Chairman Richard Lugar. The CFMA replaced the CEA's legacy system of prescriptive regulation with a principles-based regulatory framework. The regime afforded market participants the flexibility to operate within core principles so that their ability to innovate was not constrained by hard rules. More recently, Congress again amended the CEA under the Dodd-Frank Act to expand the agency's authority to more comprehensively cover the universe of swaps. Lawmakers also chose to include within the CFTC's jurisdiction offerings of commodity transactions on a margined, leveraged, or financed basis to retail participants, which must trade as a DCM on a DCM as futures. The results of these developments are reflected by the sheer size and depth of our derivatives market. At the time the Commodity Futures Trading Act was signed into law in 1974, the U.S. derivatives market was valued in the low hundreds of billions of dollars notional. Today, the CFTC regulates approximately half of the 1.2 quadrillion notional derivatives market globally. This is not an accident. It's the result of American regulation keeping pace with American innovation. But unfortunately, our history reflects that at times we've lost our way. Commodity options were prohibited in the U.S. until 1974 due to concerns that the contracts were instrumental in manipulation and destabilizing speculation. And there's been a lot of debate about Congress's decision to ban onion contracts in the Onion Futures Act of 1958, as well as the movie box office revenue contract prohibition that found its way into the 2008 financial crisis reforms. Today, we're once again at an inflection point. Another moment when the choices we make will shape the markets and opportunities of the decades ahead. We've crossed the Rubicon and are standing at a new frontier of finance. It's not a question of whether the innovations like blockchain, artificial intelligence, and prediction markets will transform our markets. It's a question of where this innovation will take place and who will write the rules. America can either accelerate and continue the regulatory tradition that made our markets the greatest on earth, or it can decelerate and let other countries take the lead. We can be optimistic about the future, or we can fear it. In this administration, we're choosing to lead. Under President Trump's leadership, America will not simply participate in the new frontier of finance, we will shape it. Today, I'll preview our innovation agenda, or what I refer to as the roadmap for the new frontier of finance. During the prior administration, the American crypto industry weathered a perfect storm of anti-crypto armies, debanking, regulation by enforcement, and offshore exchange failures. After taking the oath of office on January 20th, 2025, President Trump quickly followed through on his commitment to fire Gary Gensler and make the United States the crypto capital of the world. Under the prior regime of regulation by enforcement, businesses couldn't know in advance whether their actions were legal or illegal, whether they were guilty or innocent, because there were no clear rules on the books. Many of you in this room today were victims of
Guys, your audio.
persecution we see in banana republics. It's completely unacceptable
Welcome,
in
fam.
the United States. That's why I partnered with Chairman Atkins at the Securities and Exchange Commission on Project Crypto to codify a clear taxonomy for crypto assets that provides certainty to the marketplace as to which types of crypto assets are securities and which are not. I remain hopeful that Congress will deliver to the President's desk bipartisan crypto asset market structure legislation that codifies this jurisdictional line and establishes statutory core principles for crypto asset spot markets. While we have the tools in the box, if the bill doesn't pass, I want to be crystal clear. The most important step towards future-proofing this industry is passing this bipartisan bill. Passing clarity is the surest way that we can prevent another Gary Gensler from running a rogue campaign of lawfare against the individuals and companies in this room today. I'd urge you all to continue engaging with Capitol Hill to ensure that this bill gets across the finish line, and we stand ready to begin immediately implementing the bill if passed. If clarity continues to stall because of Democrat obstruction, the CFTC will utilize its existing authorities to begin establishing a regime for crypto asset markets. We owe it to the American people to do so. President Trump's promised to deliver a crypto asset market structure, and we will help him deliver on that promise. We will heed President Trump's call to codify a future-proof digital asset market structure that cannot be undone by the crypto haters. To achieve this, I've directed the CFTC staff to begin exploring rules to codify a CFTC market structure for crypto assets using the agency's existing authorities. This could enable current registrants as well as non-registrant crypto exchanges to be designated by the CFTC as a type of DCM known as a crypto asset market and offer crypto asset trading on a leveraged or margin basis subject to purpose-fit rules under the CFTC's regulatory oversight. I've also directed staff to engage with developers of on-chain finance protocols to establish ways in which developers can offer their protocols in a legal and compliant manner in the United States, future-proofing developer protections once and for all. We're going to give Clarity its breathing room for a vote, but if the Democrats cannot support a bipartisan work product which reflects compromises from both sides of the aisle and ultimately send a fair version of the bill to the president's desk, then rest assured, I will direct CFTC staff to move swiftly to propose these rules for the industry. Now, as President Trump has said, America is the country that started the AI race, and America is going to win it. Access to advanced GPU clusters and compute capacity increasingly determines who can compete and who can innovate, and ultimately who can lead. As demand for compute grows, so too does the need for markets capable of efficiently allocating scarce resources and managing risk. If the lessons of history are any guide, well-functioning spot, forward, and derivatives markets emerge in conjunction with demand for scarce and economically significant commodities. Compute is proving to be no different. Transparent markets can transform compute from a costly and unpredictable input into a commodity with reliable price discovery and effective hedging, which will strengthen America's capacity to lead the AI revolution. America's AI Action Plan calls upon the federal agencies to ensure access to large-scale compute for startups and academics by improving the financial market for this ever-critical digital commodity. And we're partnering with the Department of Commerce to get this done. Our first step was to issue a request for comment on compute markets, which we released earlier this week. From there, we'll take stakeholder feedback into consideration and develop a gold standard regulatory framework for these new commodities. Just as American markets helped establish the gold standard for the trading of commodities that power the industrial economy, we will do the same for the commodity that will power the intelligence economy. Today, prediction markets find themselves enduring the same type of assault that state and national politicians plagued the Chicago Board of Trade with for much of its early existence. Although Congress gave the CFTC the exclusive authority to regulate DCMs that offer trading and derivatives, many states seek to nullify federal law and apply state anti-gaming law to DCMs. These state actors are sadly suffering from what the late CFTC chairman Philip McBride Johnson called NFS, or name fixation syndrome. NFS, he explained, quote, is an intellectual malady that causes the listener to hear only the first part of a phrase, such as treasury bond futures, soybean futures, oil futures, sports futures, etc. Without treatment, this can lead the patient to think that the futures should be regulated by the same agency that supervises the name. The consequences, of course, are preposterous, end quote. I'm happy to report that we at the CFTC are not afflicted with NFS. That's why we'll continue to promote responsible innovation and lawful derivatives and defend our exclusive jurisdiction in court. As President Trump said, other countries are after this new form of financial market, and we want to remain at the top. But we'll not only defend our jurisdiction, we'll also exercise it by establishing clear rules of the road for these markets. Despite what some diagnosed with NFS may have you believe, prediction markets aren't new. Our statute expressly classifies as commodities events, contingencies, or incidents that take place which are beyond the control of the contracting parties. Derivatives on these commodities are known as event contracts, and they've traded in our markets for decades. Yet the CFTC never instituted a comprehensive regulatory framework to address the unique policy considerations associated with these products. Instead, prior administrations put their heads in the sand, thinking that the markets would go away, and when they failed, tried to outlaw the products entirely. We witnessed the same story that we did with commodity options and crypto assets unfold with event contracts. Regulators tried to ban them and drove the innovation offshore to places like the Bahamas, and we all know how that story ends. We're not going to take that approach anymore at the CFTC. Here's our roadmap for prediction markets. First, we recently proposed amendments to CFTC Rule 40.11. While every event contract must satisfy the core principles and not be readily susceptible to manipulation, Congress recognized that certain types of event contracts, specifically those involving war, terrorism, assassination, gaming, and illegal activities, raise additional public policy considerations. The CFTC has the discretion to prohibit any such contract when doing so is in the public interest. However, our statute does not define key terms like gaming or involve or establish public interest criteria for us to consider. As a result, contracts are at the risk of rejection based on arbitrary whims of political biases, and DCMs have been left operating in the dark. The prior administration attempted to prohibit event contracts on politics, sports, and cultural events in the name of the public interest, without ever defining what's in the public interest. Under this approach, the public is not the judge of its interests, but instead whoever's in control of the commission. Our proposed amendments to CFTC Rule 40.11 are intended to address these issues by defining key terms and enumerating public interest criteria for commission consideration. Second, we propose the rule to modernize the reporting framework for fully collateralized event contracts. The proposal would establish a durable regulatory framework that provides the Commission with the information it needs to oversee these markets while eliminating unnecessary complexity and regulatory burden. Finally, I expect the Commission will soon propose a series of amendments to Parts 38 and 40 of the CFTC's regulations to modernize the core principles and listing rules governing DCMs that list event contracts and institute consumer protection requirements. We've heard the concerns of the public loud and clear regarding the inadequacy of our existing consumer protection requirements for retail. These amendments would also establish clear expectations for product governance, market design, and incentive programs. We have a lot of work ahead of us at the CFTC, but we're energized by the innovation that's happening in our markets, due in large part to all of you in the room today. You've withstood anti-crypto armies, doomerism, and a whole lot of subpoenas, but you continue to build here in the United States, and that's why you're here today. We're so happy to have you all involved in the Innovation Advisory Committee. We've brought together the people building and innovating here in the United States and ensuring that the new frontier of finance is built right here on American soil. Thank you all for your service, and I'm really looking forward to today's discussions.
Thank you, Chairman Seelig, for your opening remarks. Hopefully the committee is just as enthusiastic as I am concerning the roadmap you laid out. Before diving into session one, I just need to mention a few logistical items. First, for meeting participants attending in person, if you would like to be recognized during a discussion, please change the position of your place card so that it sits vertically on the table, or raise your hand. Please ensure your microphone is on when you speak. The meeting is being simultaneously webcast, and it is important that your microphone is on so that the webcast audience can hear you. If you are attending virtually and you would like to be recognized during a discussion, please use the raise hand feature. When the IAC chair recognizes you, please identify yourself before speaking and signal when you are done speaking. Please unmute your video and microphone before you speak, and remember to mute both your camera and microphone after you speak. If you are disconnected from the meeting for any reason, please close your browser and try opening the link again for today's meeting. If you require further technical assistance, please message me within the chat. Now I'll turn it back to our IAC chair, Walt Lucan, to kick off today's discussion.
All right. Well, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Chairman, for really setting the table for today's discussion. As the Chairman mentioned, we want to start out with the evolving regulatory framework around crypto markets as our first session. We have roughly 50 minutes to do that. That's not a lot of time for all the things we may cover.
To start, everybody,
so
welcome.
As Michael mentioned, be sure to raise your placard here. If you want to be called on. I'll do that.
Let's pump
and make sure your mic is on.
Higher.
And also, if you wouldn't mind, for our folks watching online, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, your name, and your organization. Obviously, we all know who you are, but for those online, it may be helpful to know what organization you're talking from. So with that, crypto has emerged as an emerging technology into a meaningful part of our financial system globally. However, here in the U.S., as was outlined by the chairman, it's largely been done without a federal regulatory framework at the agency. So the innovators around this room have had to navigate overlapping state requirements, uncertain jurisdictional boundaries, evolving legal interpretations, and regulation by enforcement. Today, we want to talk a bit about that legal uncertainty and how that has caused problems with the development of your business. But also, this is an advisory committee. It's meant to give advice to the commission. And so we really want to try to get real world experiences of where the commission can act that will help your businesses. So let's start with an easy question, which is, how has that fragmented legal uncertainty that you've been facing really impacted the development of your business in the United States? And what advice would you give the Commission in trying to clarify the legal certainty in this area? I'll open it up to the floor. Vlad?
I'll kick this off. Thank you, by the way, Chairman Seelig, Mr. Lutkin, Mr. Pasalacqua, for convening this. I think we can all agree that it's a big change in tone.
Well, we could see you speaking
from 3 years ago, and also having a regulator taking opinionated stances and actually clarifying where they stand has been super helpful, because in the industry we're tackling all sorts of challenges, and fence sitting from the regulator is not helpful, but you've been just incredibly strong, and I think that gives us confidence to go and grow our businesses and actually help our customers. I think as to your question, one of our beliefs is that all Americans should have equal opportunity to generate wealth and to own crypto assets. It's been a challenge navigating the patchwork of state-by-state regulations, because, most direct way, not all of our products are available to all of our customers. Take staking, for example. If you're in my home state, the great state of California, which gets a lot of things right, you can't stake your crypto assets. They're very difficult about that. And practically what that means is, if you're an individual in the state of California and you want to participate in crypto, you're just economically disadvantaged relative to people in other states. So, if you'll actually, and of course, understand there's risks and protections and all of these things, but by and large, you'll just be worse off economically. And not only that, if you move states, things get a little bit tricky and cause all sorts of headaches, not just for the individual, but also operational burdens for the firms that shouldn't have to deal with that. So, 4 US states actually don't allow customers to stake their crypto assets, participate in the network, earn a return, and they very clearly want that. Stable coins, such as USDC, are available everywhere but Texas. Of course, if it's a payment network and certain states aren't accepted, it just becomes less effective. USDG, the stable coin we partner with Paxos and a few other companies here on, aren't live in New York, and Robinhood Connect, which is a really low-cost on-ramp that we have some partners here in the room using, is not live in New York either. So I think just a federal framework, aside from providing us certainty and durability and not, having our customers worry about rules changing every 4 to 8 years, or whether an asset they're going to hold is going to have to be delisted one way or another, preventing their access to it, which I think just puts a cloud of uncertainty over everything, will directly make it so that we don't have to deal with multi-state access issues where some of our products are available in certain states. And I think the customer, unfortunately, ends up suffering here more than the broker or the crypto firm in most cases. So I'll pause there, but really want to thank you guys for the yeoman's work that you've been putting to clarify all this stuff.
So exclusive jurisdiction of the agency would solve that, that the chairman outlined. That's an attractive feature to businesses like yours. Brian, I saw you had your placard up before you dropped it.
Before it flew off, yes. Yeah, so we were one of the companies affected by the prior environment, certainly, and to put it mildly, I think it was a disgrace for America, right? You had an industry that was doing its best to follow what laws existed, We couldn't hear any clear feedback from those regulators about point somewhere in the law that you feel like what this is, what we're doing is not allowed. Yet we continually received threats and direction from them to stop and cease certain activity. And when I would go in to meet with them and ask them, can you help us understand where, your theory of the law here, they would say, I'm not going to give you legal advice, talk to your lawyers. And by the way, their head of enforcement would kind of be sitting right there, writing down notes in this meeting where we were, lured in to say, come in to register. And then it turned out we'd get a Wells notice a few weeks later. So yeah, that kind of environment is just not conducive. And it really, a couple of results, things happen from that. I mean, one is that roughly 80% of crypto trading went offshore. I heard someone remark one time that nobody has done more for the economic development of the UAE and the Bahamas than Gary Gensler. So, unintended consequences. There was also, some folks are here from the venture capital space, like Chris Dixon, and he's made the point to me very clearly that they just saw a real dearth of new entrepreneurs coming in to build things and to pitch them because, if you're 22 years old and you have an idea and a dream and you want to co-found some company with your friend, you're much less likely to do it if you think you're going to be sued by the federal government within weeks of launching, and you have to go tell your parents about that, which is not fun. And not to mention, the average venture capitalist doesn't want to write a $5 million check into a startup that they know 4.5 million of that is just going to go to legal bills in the impending lawsuit. So that's why I think it's so important, the approach that this agency and the new regulators, the chair here has taken. I liked what you said in your opening comments about optimism. I mean, yeah, in America, we should have optimism about the future, and every new change can be viewed as a threat or an opportunity. And I think that's what's made America great, is being optimistic about the future, seeing these things as opportunities to go work through. So thank you for your leadership on that. So yeah, clarity would be an incredible step to getting clear federal oversight, including from the CFTC on this spot market authority. And the 50-state regime really has been that patchwork quilt, so that would struggle. Now, if for some reason, I think clarity has a great chance of passing. It seems like people got 90% of what they want on both sides, and it's good for everyone. But if for some reason it doesn't pass, I commend Chair Seelig and Chair Atkins for just pushing forward with clear rules regardless. And I think that's going to be very important. So there's especially, I'll mention one final thing, which is, especially in the past, it was challenging to get the two agencies to work together. And there are certain products which sit at the intersection of the CFTC and the SEC, things like equity perps or KPI event contracts, like on the earnings of a company or something like that. And it's so great to see the two agencies collaborating now. This whole debate in the US about, is this a commodity or is it security? We operate in other countries like Singapore and the UK and places where there's just one federal regulator, and this question never comes up. And so that territorial nature that happened in the prior administration has completely evaporated, and the collaboration is just a breath of fresh air. So thank you.
Tyler, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I did. Thank you for having us all. Oh, I did. Oh, there we go. Tyler Winklevoss with Gemini. Thank you, Chairman Selig and Mr. Lucan, for convening this council. It's a great cathartic moment after so many years of lawfare and not being able to actually have a conversation and engage with regulators. I totally agree with what Brian and Vlad have said, and it rings very true to our experience. Having to go to 50 different states for MTLs to get licenses. And if you've seen one state, you've seen one. They're all different. Some say we regulate this. Some say, what are you talking about? We don't regulate it. And some say we only regulate the marketplace and not the custody part. And of course, the custody part is where things can go really wrong. And even engaging a law firm to help you navigate this morass of licensing, it's actually a specialty at law firms. It's so complicated that law firms have to have their own specific practice regarding MTLs. And so It is true that in some states you can stake on Gemini and some you cannot. And every state is different versus the rest of the world is much more unified. And when people talk about crypto trading or Bitcoin trading and the volume in it, the volume in Asia is so big versus the volume in America. Most of that volume is perpetual swaps, or perpetual futures rather. And we haven't been able to bring them into America. And so we've been competing in the US. When you do the right thing, you're competing with folks around the globe that are allowed to move at the speed of innovation, offer products that we can't offer here. And it feels like you're running with lead shoes on and a parachute. So it's incredible to finally be able to have a conversation of how we can bring in these amazing products into the US and offer this innovation and this competition and all this value to customers here. I think that's great for America, that's great for consumers, and that's great for American businesses. So it's just great to finally be able to be playing on a level playing field. And just quickly, so much of the innovation has been stifled. Why would you come into crypto just to get sued when you can go to these exciting other industries like AI? We know historically the best companies in America came out of garages and dorm rooms. They didn't come out of the conference rooms of law firms. And so we need to change that. And we're finally doing that. And I think that we need to be committed to helping pass clarity. But if that can't happen, we can't delay forever. We need to pass rules and rulemaking. That's going to happen anyway. You need rulemaking. If you pass clarity, you're going to have rules if you don't pass clarity. And the question is, are we going to write rules now during this administration with these chairs, Chairman Selig and Chairman Atkins, or are we going to let these rules be written by someone else, potentially a Gary Gensler 2.0? And so it's important that we get going. Chairman Atkins showed us the way with reg crypto assets just the other day and helping projects raise capital with the proper disclosures. And all of a sudden, we just may see a Cambrian explosion of innovation when it is clear to an engineer in a college dorm room how they can actually raise money for their project. Right now, it's not clear, but what is clear is you have to hire a lot of lawyers, spend a lot of money. Why would you bother with that brain damage that we all lived for the last decade when you can just go to AI or some other industry? So thanks again for having us.
All right, well, we have, thank you, Tyler, and we have a few placards up, so I'm going to go with Raghu first, and then I think Mike, Brad,
we're pumping.
Don, and
really
Arjun.
nice, everybody.
So
How you all doing?
order.
Welcome. Let's go.
Sounds good. This is Raghu Yarlagadda from FalconX. First of all, thanks so much for hosting. It is really refreshing to see innovation coming from crypto being recognized by this forum. For years, we've been ducking behind rocks, so it is, I'm very thankful that the innovation is being recognized. Now, specific to the fragmentation when it comes to regulation, I'll start with a little bit of a context on where my question or suggestion is coming from. I'm an engineer, so what I chase is, what is the use case, what are customers asking, and how can I build for that very fast? The world fundamentally changed in the last 12 months. Q4, the entire world was after gold. Q1, the entire world was after oil. And Q2, the entire world seems to be behind equities. And you see that explosion within real world assets on chain. Now, as an engineer trying to build for that, we were the first digital asset CFTC swap dealer. And it was an incredible experience working with CFTC over the last 3 years, refining and providing swaps to the US market and making it safer in the context of digital assets. Now, when I'm trying to build a platform that has every single asset, not just crypto, not just commodities, but securities, prediction markets, and everything in one single fabric, at the federal level, while we made tremendous amount of progress over the last 1 year in terms of bringing both agencies together, I think we could perhaps do more. If I have a CFTC swap dealer, that enables me to basically serve swaps to my commodity swaps to my customers. Can we build harmonization and reciprocity with SEC so that I don't have to again go and apply for a security swap dealer? Because it takes 2-3 years, millions of dollars, and the army of lawyers to again apply for a new regulation, new licensing completely. So if the forum can actually think through that and consider how to bring some of the fragmentation at the federal level, that could be very powerful for the builders behind the scenes. And again, I really appreciate you guys creating the forum. It means a lot to everyone building in the space.
I would love to explore that topic a little more, the SEC, CFTC harmonization. So if you have thoughts on that, you mentioned Phil McBride Johnson, who was the Shad Johnson Accord, the first harmonization effort between the agencies. Maybe there'll be a Atkins-Selig arrangement soon, I don't know. But anyway, Mike, let's go to you. And I see Hayden's online too. We're gonna, I didn't see him earlier, but we'll go after Mike to Hayden online.
All right, hello, Mike Belshi, BitGo. First off, like everybody else, thank you for having this. It is a delightful change from the previous administration that wanted to do the opposite. In terms of what's happened, I mean, I think we've all seen, we talk about, MTLs, state by state, all of these things are hurdles. It really comes down to a more fundamental problem, which is just speed. Business moves at speed. It has to move at speed. AI is going to make it move at even more speed, which unfortunately probably makes this entire discussion even harder as we think about what comes in the coming years. We've heard a little bit about regulation by enforcement. And what is that? That's where you tried something and then instead of having a regulator say like, all right, that didn't work, we don't like it, we'd like you to change it this way or guide, instead you get slapped with something criminal or something severe civil penalties or whatnot. So I think the most important thing is how do you facilitate speed, making decisions? I think I speak certainly for everybody here, we are perfectly happy to work with the regulators on whatever it is we have to work through. We just don't want the regulation by enforcement. It holds everything back. So quick decision making, I think, is probably really an underpinning to this. And then I also heard in the opening remarks, principle-based regulation, CFTC has a bit of this. I think it's such a better model. As we look forward, trying to define rules today for whatever is going to come tomorrow is going to be tricky. So continuing on the principle-based, I think, is a stronger path.
And Hayden, if you could unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, thank you. So I'm Hayden. I'm the founder of Uniswap. We pioneered automated market making, which improves market efficiency and lowers the barrier to creating and participating in markets.
Uniswap in the house.
I really want to start by thanking Chair Selig and the CFTC leadership. As a builder in the crypto space, the difference for us with this innovation approach is really night and day. And that's what I most wanted to speak to here is, what crypto startups in the US went through. And, from the beginning, we always aim to be a good actor and follow all laws and regulations where no proactive guidance was given. And, for that, I'd say that we had, me and my company and multiple of my employees were debanked. The company received a Wells notice from the SEC after a 4-year investigation. We had a CFTC investigation resulting in a no admit, no deny settlement. We had state regulators pile on to federal investigations and kind of bring, copy pastes of those lawsuits or investigate, or at least investigate. We had the regulatory vacuum that was created also led to, class action lawsuits that were basically, recreations of the same SEC claims. On top of that, I want to kind of, throughout all of this, we were a 100-person startup. And so I think most startups cannot survive that. So we survived that, but I think that we're more likely an exception to the rule. And it was because of just like the massive adoption and usage of Uniswap and some of the resources that gave us. But for us, it like really held us back. And I have, many personal friends who shut down their companies during that same period of time because their companies could not weather it. I also had many personal friends who were crypto founders leave the United States to build their companies outside of the US as US citizens because they didn't want to go through what we were going through. And I will say that the ones that left the US also were the ones that didn't get sued, and they were able to build faster and not have the same concerns. we were able to kind of survive, but our competitors were able to move faster, were able to build things that we were not. They were able to kind of, be a lot more aggressive in terms of their growth. So, I stayed in the US throughout it, despite, very frequently being recommended to leave the US, because I believe in kind of the promise of this country. I believe in the value of what we're doing, and, that it can be good for that what we're building is good for the world, and that ultimately, working through this within the country that I live is the right way to approach it. But I will say that that was against a lot of recommendation. And I think that a lot of people that left the US also didn't regret it and had a lot less legal issues to deal with. So, I think that how do we go from here? I think that we've all been saying that we really appreciate this new approach, and it is night and day for us. I think that what we have to think about now is how to kind of retain these benefits into the future, right? Which is, the current the political kind of tides can shift and turn very quickly, as we've seen in this very positive way. And so, what we have to think about is, if we really hope that clarity passes, obviously, and that's kind of, really important for builders in the US. And if it doesn't pass, then I think that the next best approach is kind of working with regulators to create as much proactive guidance during this pro-innovation period as we can to kind of help create a longer term certainty and clarity there. So, that's mostly what I wanted to speak to. Happy to kind of speak to anything else, but really just, we need clarity, and if we don't get clarity, we need, proactive regulations. I'll also kind of mention that, even in this kind of window of very minimal regulations, we did our best to interpret and kind of do the job that ultimately was meant to be regulators, but that process itself is very expensive. You have to hire lawyers to kind of redefine from first principles how to approach every single product that you build. And so we really hope to, be a partner in creating proactive rules that can help, have others not have to go through what we went through. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Hayden. One of the promises of crypto is not just the asset class that sits on top of the blockchain, but the technology that underlies it. And blockchain and tokenization that we're seeing a lot of the institutions that have long been in our markets utilizing that technology. I do want to bring them into the conversation a bit more too, because in many ways, that's the most exciting part of the market structure dialogue. Not necessarily the new asset class, which is exciting, but the technology that's going to revolutionize how markets work across the board. So, Brad, I want to go to you next, and then I think we have Don after that.
Brad, he's coming. Is he?
Oh, there he goes. Sorry. Well, I was going back to the first question. Thank you, by the way, for hosting all of us. It's an honor to be here. I'm Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple. As many of you know, Ripple had the unfortunate reality of being at the center of the bullseye of the SEC's lawfare in the previous administration. And suffice it to say, my headline for today is what a difference leadership makes. I think it's profound, as you've heard from several people here, how significant that shift has been. You asked for some examples. I think it was Brian that referenced that you didn't want to invest $5 million and have $4 million go to legal bills. Ripple spent $150 million on outside legal counsel during our 4-year battle with the SEC. Most companies would not have, and frankly, other companies were bullied into submission prior to the lawsuit with Ripple. Suffice it to say, from my point of view, and I think everyone here would probably agree, the status quo is not good enough for consumers or for innovation. I think it's absolutely imperative we have these clear rules of the road, both to protect users, but also hold companies accountable and give responsible businesses the certainty to build here in America. You asked for examples. 80% of Ripple's hiring for those 4 years was non-US. Even today, our second largest office is London because of that legacy that has shifted under the leadership of this president and this administration, the CFTC and SEC. I think we all can agree that the technologies represented at the tables here can make moving money faster, more efficient, and more accessible. But we have to have clarity to unlock that potential responsibly. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you everyone for being here today to help achieve that.
Brad Garlinghouse in the house.
Don.
Chairman Selig, thank you very much for putting this together. This is very exciting. I'm Don Wilson, the founder and CEO of DRW and also our crypto arm Cumberland. I'm pretty sure I can say that I have the honor to be the only one who was sued by Gary Gensler twice, once when he was running the CFTC and once when he was running the SEC. Much better environment now, so thank you. I wanted to follow up on a comment that Tyler made about perpetual futures contracts. My view is that perpetual futures contracts are a very useful risk management tool. And I think that, for instance, ETFs like USO would benefit from using perpetual futures contracts in addition to quarterly futures contracts in their, as part of their investing vehicle. Just because it is a perpetual futures contract does not mean it needs to have 100 times leverage, does not mean it needs to have auto deleveraging. Those are all features that were put in place on offshore platforms. I don't think that we should adopt those. I've been quite clear about that. And Kalshi has, launched Bitcoin futures. I think they have like 5-to-1 leverage or something. It's entirely reasonable. I also think it's important that we regulate these. To your NFS comment, we regulate perpetual futures contracts as futures contracts and not as swaps. If we categorize them as swaps, they're just going to remain offshore. We will not be able to benefit from the risk management tools that these can serve if we bring them onshore into a safe and regulated environment. So I encourage you to do that, and I encourage you to approve perpetual futures contracts on a wide range of products, including single name, equity, et cetera. I think that there's a lot of benefit to that. On the underlying technology of blockchains and what they bring to the table, we're very excited about that innovation that's taking place there. We've been working closely with the BTCC and their progression towards launching in October on top of Besu and Canton. But we do need some additional regulatory clarity that's probably not going to be covered in clarity. It is more of a just clarity from the commission. For instance, we're moving to 24/7 trading. We obviously need to facilitate 24/7 collateral movement. Forcing market participants to over-collateralize for weekends is not beneficial. I think that the CFTC has an opportunity to encourage harmonized margin cycles during weekends. It's also important that FCMs have clarity on whether they can self-custody customer seg funds in tokenized forms, and if so, are they subject to any constraints? These are real concerns that people have, that need to be clarified, not 6 months from now, but kind of now, because we're already racing down this path. So, but yeah, again, thank you for putting this together, and great to be here.
Thank you, Don. We support a lot of that technology movements too, on trying to get 24/7 movement on collateral. So that's a great idea. Arjun.
Well, thank you for having us here and bringing us from sunny California to Washington, D.C. The weather is much better here. I think everyone will say enforcement is bad, clarity is good, but I don't think anyone would really argue with that. And so I think you'll hear that as a recurring theme. But I think it's worth pricing it in terms of what we did and how we structured our business alongside other people's stories. So in 2021, we paid $30 million to the SEC. So, and we basically shut down staking for about 2 years. We had it outside the United States. We also grew outside the United States, and we essentially, continue to invest outside the United States. 2/3 of our team for Kraken today is outside the United States. Then we ended up to come onshore. We spent roughly $2 billion to acquire licenses. Don't make fun of us, but we have 2 DCMs, 1 DCO, and 2 FCMs. If you think about like market access premium of what we pay here in the United States versus anywhere else in the world is roughly 50 times larger versus what the build cost looks like. So that is just a huge disparity on what you see any innovator, any entrepreneur, any engineer building outside the United States. We're almost as cool as like the healthcare industry. And so I think that's, it's a little bit of an embarrassment. The other one I think is like I laugh when I read Twitter, of course, because I think of it as a source of truth many times, is that we are the last of the G20 members without a market structure framework. Russia passed it a couple weeks ago. So we are comparing ourselves to every other country in the world where they've moved forward. MiCA passed in 2023, and it's already fully live, and it is a basic framework that has worked out pretty well for what I call good actors. The thing that I think people won't name here is that a lot of innovation is outside the United States, but it's also harmful to US customers because you can get access to some of these products in an unregulated way. So, without naming the names of these exchanges, they still act in a nefarious way. They have leverage. They have ADL, processes and systems that hurt not just US customers, but customers worldwide. I think, and Tyler mentioned this as well, I don't think that legislation and rulemaking, it has to be one versus the other. We can do both. And so my sincere advice and suggestion would be to just do it. I mean, you have a lot of recommendations here on what that looks like. Clarity is the framework, right? The perimeter of what we're trying to do. Rulemaking and guidance is gonna come from the CFTC and the SEC, and there's no reason to wait. And the longer we wait, it's more likely than not we won't see anything in the future. We'll kind of be back here again. And my hope is that companies like ours aren't spending another $2, $3, $4, $5 billion just in the licensing stack. Similar to Brad's comment about Ripple, we spend today over $150 million a year just in legal fees. I love lawyers; they're my friends. I've known them for a long time. But at some point, I'm not looking to enrich them.
Thank you, Arjun. Well, we have about 10 minutes left in the session and about 10 placards up. So I'm trying to do this in order. So I see everybody's placards that are up, but I think I had Peter first, Joe, and then Frank. But if we can just try to keep it concise so we can try to get as many comments in as possible. We may go a little bit long. Yeah.
Thank you. Peter Smith, blockchain.com. So I've been doing crypto for like 13 years and definitely really appreciate being here. Sort of the chance to speak openly with the commission and help shape the future of US policy. I always thought of Gary Gensler as like the best salesperson and BD guy for the legal industry, less than the Bahamas, but everybody has it a little different. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, very kind of short point, is we do most of our business outside the United States, and our largest office is in London. So we've been really at the forefront of the MiCA rollout, as well as how MiCA was written. And one of the things that we've learned from that is that harmonization is great, particularly for large companies like ourselves and many of this in the room. It can also be very bad for startups. And even though this is kind of against our own interests, one of the things that we tell regulators globally is that you don't want to make some of the mistakes that we made in Europe with MiCA, which is that it made it very hard for small companies and startups to compete. So as MiCA has come into full force this year, you've seen thousands of digital asset companies unable to be regulated and basically have to wind up business. And so one of the things that I push for a lot in meetings with regulators is sandboxes, so that small players can continue to be part of the market, so that we can have startups, so we can have innovation. And that brings me to my second point, which is, as Mike said, we need to move at the speed that companies and business can now move. which with LLM tools and AI is incredibly fast. So I think a lot of activity needs to have some kind of safe harbor limit based on the amount of, business metrics, so that you can move faster as a business and remain competitive globally. And with that, I'll just say thank you again.
Thanks, Joe. I'm sorry. Thanks, Peter. We go turning to Joe.
Thank you. So I wanted to go on record just supporting a bunch of the stories of my colleagues who, like us, spent millions of dollars and were thwarted in our attempts to innovate for a number of years. It really drained a lot of the energy out of the American aspects of our ecosystem. And so I wanted to thank Project Crypto, CFTC, SEC for your open dialogue approach, your approach to clear rulemaking versus the previous administrations. It has been incredibly invigorating for our company. We are energetically innovating, and we're shipping code incredibly quickly, faster than we ever have. The collaborative approach between the two agencies is, I think, going to be extremely important, and collaboration with innovators. Programmable money, programmable finance is a new kind of construct, new kinds of primitives. And DeFi is going to have some sort of uncertainty principles behind it, where you look at it a certain way, it's a security, look at it another way, it's a commodity, and we're going to have to figure out collaboratively this sort of blurry, at times, new set of primitives in finance. And there are cracks in our ecosystem between protocols, and those cracks present dangers. Those are dangers where security issues can emerge, and so we're going to have to take a very holistic approach to understanding and regulating decentralized finance. Harmonization may be necessary to address new kinds of constructs. Vaults in particular are going to be a very interesting topic for us all to look at together. I anticipate that vaults, which are essentially smart contracts that can serve as containers and mechanism around different kinds of financial instruments, they'll have securities characteristics, they'll have commodities and derivatives characteristics, and I think we're going to need a first principles approach because securities laws were designed to protect consumers and other holders of financial instruments against the people who might not be fully aligned with the best interests of the investor. Smart contracts, on the other hand, are going to be very transparent. You're going to be able to explicitly, programmatically disclose the strategy that is being followed, and you're going to be able to set things up so that the custody remains with the investor even while the capital is deployed in a strategy. So once again, thank you so much for your work.
Thank you, Joe. Just to throw another thing into the mix here too, part of our obsession at trade associations is also operational resilience and cybersecurity. If any of you might want to address, whether the crypto technological revolution is going to help with that. Operational resilience. I know there's a lot of discussions around mythos and what that might mean for our industry, but we'd love any advice on whether the CFTC needs additional guidance in that area would also be helpful. But let me turn to Frank from DTCC, who's been doing a lot of work on tokenization.
DTCC, guys, tokenization, Canton, XLM, listen. Well, he's going to figure it out soon.
Thank you. Thanks. Yes, I'm Frank Osawa, CEO of the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. Mr. Chairman, thank you for having us. It's really great. I think this was a fantastic idea. Walt, thank you for volunteering to be the parental supervision in the room. Keep us all in check. You're doing a good job so far. Nice work. So, Mr. Chairman, what I wanted to say is, and I'm going to come at this from a slightly different perspective. I think all of us could attest to the fact that whether it's AI or blockchain, crypto, financial markets are transforming at a rate that none of us could have imagined not too long ago. And I think I've heard around this table, it's going to move with us or it's going to move around us. So having something like this is really important. One of the things that strikes me as I listen to what everybody said and I look around the room is you've got an incredible ability to bring people together. Like this idea of just bringing teams like this together. We got a taste of it when you were at the SEC and you brought together the crypto task force. And what that allowed firms like ours to do, it gave us an open lane to have a dialogue. And even though we had lack of regulatory clarity, it gave us enough confidence to move ahead with things that we knew needed to be done to stay ahead or at least stay with the innovation that was coming in front of us. That's incredible. This ability to convene, I would not underestimate. I look around this room, you clearly have that power to convene. So as we walk through this path of not knowing what legislation is going to come at us, what might come, what bits might fall off, I think I would encourage you to continue to convene, maybe not in large groups like this, but open up those lanes, because when we as an industry have that interaction with staff and getting a sense of where the chairman is on things, that gives us a lot more confidence to move ahead that we otherwise wouldn't. So if I could leave you with any piece of advice, that would be it. I would also commend you on the work you are doing. We've heard about modernization a little bit. I would also really compliment you and Chair Atkins on what you did in harmonization. That allowed us to be able to do cross-margining with cash and futures. We've delivered a tremendous amount of value to the industry as soon as we got that clarity. So those are the things that I think excite me. And if we continue down that path, I think we could stay ahead of this innovation, and we can transform the U.S. capital markets into a place that I don't think any of us could imagine. So I'd encourage you to do that. Thank you again.
Adina, I saw your placard up earlier.
Yep, great. Thank you very much, Walt. I'm Adina Friedman. I'm the CEO of NASDAQ. And I want to thank you very much for bringing us all together. And I don't want to reiterate every comment people have made, but it is really a very different environment for us to be able to have dialogue and understand each other and look at this collaboration across the agencies. We have been really focused on that issue of collaboration and understanding what the benefits are going to be and how we can turn the that spirit into action. And one area that we've been focused on is how do we continue to expand into the crypto world with our options business. And we've been able to leverage our equities markets to have ETF listings of crypto assets, and then have the ETF options listed on our options markets that's regulated by the SEC.
Pullback in the price of XRP?
But as we continue to take another step forward in listing an index, a Bitcoin index options product, that's where we've been in regulatory limbo now for a year and a half. So we'd like to understand how we can leverage the great collaboration across the agencies to say, okay, how can we get through this issue where you've got a product that really is it's a cross-agency product. It's one where the two agencies have to agree on how to manage the regulatory oversight. We are an SEC registered entity. We're not a CFTC registered entity in our options business, but we want to be able to offer more choice to our clients and also, frankly, to have a better competitive standing as we continue to look at the new world of finance that's developing. So we would encourage the CFTC and the SEC to continue to find paths forward to turn this great spirit into tangible progress. And then in other areas, which we'll talk later in the prediction space, I think there's a different orientation to trying to define very clear standards of which agency has jurisdiction and where there isn't clear jurisdiction. So again, we find that collaborative path forward. So thank you.
Great. Shane, good to see you.
Hey, what's up? I'm Shane. I'm CEO of Polymarket. I know time is of the essence, so thank you for having me. Chair Seelig and Amir, Michael, Walt, you guys have been incredible. It's, I come from a point of view, right, where, you have these moments where there's new technological innovations. And it's moments like that where, you're 21 and you're a tech nerd and you're entrepreneurial and you're enterprising and, you want some sort of upward mobility. And it's kind of those fringe technologies that have a lot of legs where you have a chance to build something that's on the frontier that maybe a lot of the more experienced people here may think is too small to begin with, and go and make something meaningful. So I've been humbled and grateful as an American to be able to build something from scratch that has been impactful and make meaning, and by no means
He's so
perfect.
young,
And
bro.
I'm
I feel old.
my first go around at this, learning along the way. I've learned a lot from many people in this room. So one thing that I wanted to mention, which I think is just an important distinction, is like I look back at our arc from starting right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I know in 2021 was the first time we went to the CFTC with a DeFi legalization proposal, which was how to do it in the U.S., et cetera. And I started Polymarket with no money as a solo founder, and the idea of lawyers I didn't even know. There's no ChatGPT. Like you're kind of, I know, forgive me for being so naive back then, but I kind of went into it was like, hey, anything's better than running out of money for rent. And so I think the main parting, like as you guys are sitting here and trying to ask entrepreneurs and founders and executives of these companies, the thing I would say is like, from our point of view, we've always been like, hey, we'll do anything to go and figure this out, right? And we bought the DCM DCO. We didn't know if they were going to be a lot more approved, so I think we paid a lot for it. And I think that the most important guiding principle is that it can be very tedious. It can be a very difficult process, but there has to be a way to do it in America. There is capital. You can raise capital. You can hire excellent operators. You can go and get scale that way. You can get the best lawyers. So I'm sure all of us have. But if something's impossible to do, and there's really no way, it's extremely difficult. It's an extremely difficult position for someone who wants to go build like an honest, functioning business and grow it as an American. So what I would say about the current state of affairs is like, I feel as an entrepreneur, as someone trying to innovate and be inventive, I'm just extremely grateful for the commission, for the chairman, for President Trump going and kind of giving everyone like the cover to be able to say, hey, we're going to go and adopt innovation. We're going to go and embrace all the people who are at the cutting edge of these new tech spaces, in this case, finance, and all facets, and like see what they want to build and figure out how they can do it responsibly. Because the most important thing, and the thing I think people maybe like conflate the most, is like you have to distinguish between the technology and like an innovative technology and the actual like financial primitive. And there's some times where you'll end up in a place where, hey, the financial primitive can be kosher, it can be legal, it can be something you can regulate, and the technology is different. And it's moments like that where the competence and the commercial instinct and like the willingness to engage of the public sector, of the commission in this case, is such a multiplier on the ability to innovate domestically. So anyway, I'm extremely grateful. Thank you for having me, and just really excited about what's ahead.
Thank you, Shane. Looks like we have about 4 people who haven't spoken yet before our break. So I have it in order: Carla, Scott, I think I have Sergey, and then Vladimir, and then we'll take a short break. But Carla?
Hi, thanks. I'm Professor Carla Reyes, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here. When I listened to the roadmap earlier, I was particularly pleased to hear that part of the roadmap is providing rules of the road for developers of financial protocols, because I do view the last administration's like largest misstep, perhaps from the CFTC perspective, to be the trio, that set of 3 consent decrees along the lines of Open, DAREDX, and 0x, which left developers of financial protocols in a bit of a bind, frankly, in terms of understanding precedent and how it applies to their ability to build things that are regulated under the CFTC's jurisdiction. So I do hope that remains the focus of the roadmap, and I hope that it remains the focus of the roadmap whether or not Clarity advances, because although BRCA is included in Clarity, in most drafts anyway, and although BRCA is quite good and important, it is quite narrow in the protections that it provides developers, and it would not actually address the issues raised by those 3 consent decrees under the prior CFTC. Secondarily, I would encourage in the writing of the rules under the roadmap a functional approach, which from a regulatory theory perspective does share some attributes with principles-based regulation, but from an execution approach takes a slightly different tact. In part, it would keep you away from words like taxonomies, frankly, which I detest, because taxonomies very quickly become out of date, and instead would guide you to look at the difference between, as was just said by a colleague across the room, between the technical, the technology itself and the financial primitive as separate entities, and really understanding what the heck is going on so that you can regulate from a functional approach. But broadly speaking, I just wanted to turn the attention of the discussion to those developer protections, because I do think it's a core piece of the roadmap that you laid out, and I hope that it does not go overlooked, whether clarity is advanced or not.
Thank you, Carla. Scott.
Let me extend my thanks as well to the chairman and the CFTC for holding this event. It's encouraging to hear that we have a kind of a two-pronged attack. Clarity provides some important reforms around federal preemption, which you've heard here today is an important thing. Regulatory clarity, very important that the CFTC and the SEC work together on products and in infrastructure solutions, working through that cross-margining that Frank mentioned. You have an important role to develop conflict of interest rules to make sure that both existing and new infrastructures are working off a level playing field and a clear playing field. Cross-product margining is critically important. There's a provision in Clarity requiring rules around that, and clarifying broad participation to provide liquidity, including bringing banks and their customers in, both as liquidity providers and offering their customers access to these important products. Separately, you have a big role in this building alone to address, and it's encouraging to hear that you're working with staff. Things around, as Don mentioned, custody and segregation. Rule 1.44 needs to be addressed to address wallets. Rule 0.149 to address eligible depository rules and what a depository could or should be if we're going to add new ones to that. Margin around haircuts. We believe it should look at the underlying product, not the delivery mechanism, i.e. tokenization. Think about making sure that these are all risk appropriate and making sure that we coordinate on capital regulation. Margin haircut methodology and cross-border regulation. Rules have been written, it was noted earlier. We have MiCA, we have rules all over the world. Bringing your leadership together, coordinating that internationally is also important. And then there's the importance of legal certainty and netting, making sure that that works, thinking about how we have the opportunity with tokenization to move assets quicker, to settle them quicker, to clear them quicker, but we can't forget about the efficiency offered by netting. And I think Frank has mentioned there's not enough capital in the world, cash in the world to settle growth. So we want to make sure that we think about this in the most efficient way. On the 24/7 risk management, coordinating an ecosystem-wide transition, i.e. making sure that clearing and risk management keeps up with trading, we think is critically important. Making sure that we have the funding and clearing rules very well established around margin treatment and delivery. Good sound risk management default mechanisms around some of the new infrastructures, whether it's going to be auto liquidation, how retail versus institutional is treated. And then, of course, maintaining AML and KYC rules that we have today that are applied broadly. Those have to be adhered to as well. So a lot to do. Greatly appreciate your enthusiasm and interest in solving these problems. Thank you.
Great. Let's turn to Sergey.
Great, thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for creating clarity and fairness in the financial markets. I think that's a cornerstone of America's success, and one of the reasons so many people build so many great applications in the American financial system. I think we shouldn't lose sight of that. That your two agencies, the SEC and the CFTC, are finally working together productively rather than fighting with each other publicly, I think is in and of itself a massive improvement, both for the reputation of the US, the trust in the markets, and obviously all the outcomes that you come together with a single unified vision instead of 16 different regulations over here and 25 over there that all conflict. And then that American innovation thing doesn't happen, which none of us want because we all live here, right? Now, we at Chainlink power thousands of applications. We power the majority of DeFi. And I've seen hundreds of people decide not to build applications in the US. So for every Hayden or Shane who have the strength and the will to stay in the US and build innovative, high-quality applications in the US system and for the US consumer, there's thousands for each one of them that left, closed it down. And I know that personally because I'm their infrastructure provider for data, cross-chain, everything else beyond and in between. So that's a very serious cost, in my opinion. And I've personally been living that cost with those founders for now well over 7 years. And a lot of them, they're just not here to speak today because they're not doing this anymore, right? And they're not benefiting the financial system or the American consumer. It's a very, very serious issue, and I'm very thrilled that we're addressing it. Now, the thing that I think is going to happen next is extremely clear. The tokenization of equities is going to create a lot of on-chain value. And historically, how this industry works is when value appears, the corresponding markets and financial products appear around that value. Now, the US equities market are the majority of the global financial system's equity, value and flow right now. And if the global financial system moves on chain, well, then you would want the US financial system to move on chain at the same speed or ideally faster if you want to retain that 60% approximate market share, right? So this is really, I think, what we're discussing, and it's very important because it determines America's global position in the global financial system. And just to point out, two key things that we've been discussing here, collateral management is massively improved. On a very basic level, you go from 21/5 to 24/7, and you reduce risk massively because there's much more transparency about what's going on with that collateral. It's a no-brainer. Anyone can do the math there, 21/5 to 24/7, right? That's already valuable. That's huge amounts of value. And then to the point that was raised from the CFTC about security, that is a massively improved aspect of private key security, blockchains, smart contracts. That is, I think, going to be increasingly valuable as AI decides to attack financial markets and to try to manipulate financial markets. And I think blockchains and smart contracts and oracles are going to be uniquely capable in withstanding those cyber risk threats, which I'm more than happy to speak with you and any market participants about. So thank you very much. And I think we'll all make a great new financial system together. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergey.
Bump it.
Vladimir, let's go.
Vlad?
It's the face, yeah.
Thanks so much. I'm Vlad Nowakowski, founder and CEO of Lighter. We've been building in the US from day one, and so it's been great to contribute to American innovation as part of this group here. We really appreciate the chairman's leadership in putting this group together and doing that. So I guess the point I want to make is, as builders in DeFi, I think there's been for a long time kind of a misconception about DeFi, and from our perspective, DeFi is not a regulator's enemy. In fact, it should be a regulator's friend. Having transactions on a ledger in a verifiable way, it actually makes it a lot easier to do the kinds of tasks that a regulator needs to do in terms of transparency, in terms of consumer protection, in terms of fairness. And so we've been very encouraged by the leadership and the staff at CFTC to really understand DeFi and understand how it's consistent with the CFTC core principles. I'll give you an example, like what's been the most robust payment system invented? It's probably Bitcoin, right? And why is that? Because it's verifiable, because it's open source. If there's a problem with it, anyone in the world, the good guys will find that problem before the bad guys, and things will get patched up. And so with that said, I think as we think about the technology going forward, the financial infrastructure of the US in the future, I think decentralized verifiable finance is a big part of that as it relates to cybersecurity and operational resilience as well. Having more and more technology evolve to an open source verifiable stack will be important. And even I think a couple of folks raised the question of ADL. We would argue that even that functionality, as long as it's done in a way that's fair, transparent, verifiable, can be consistent with core principles and protect the consumer. So anyway, great to be part of this discussion. I know everyone is waiting for the break, but I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Vladimir, for wrapping that up. This does conclude our discussion on the evolution of the regulatory framework for crypto. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Please be prompt in coming back, and
Don't go
we'll
anywhere.
dive into our AI and prediction market discussion.
We
Thank
are
you.
staying. And guys, don't go anywhere because I got Brad Garlinghouse for you right here.
Well, I was going back to the first question. Thank you, by the way, for hosting all of us. It's an honor to be here. I'm Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple. As many of you know, Ripple had the unfortunate reality of being at the center of the bullseye of the SEC's lawfare and the previous administration. And suffice it to say, my headline for today is "What a Difference Leadership Makes." I think it's profound, as you've heard from several people here, how significant that shift has been. You asked for some examples. I think it was Brian that referenced that you didn't want to invest $5 million and have $4 million go to legal bills. Ripple spent $150 million on outside legal counsel during our 4-year battle with the SEC. Most companies would not have, and frankly, other companies were bullied into submission prior to the lawsuit with Ripple. Suffice it to say, from my point of view, and I think everyone here would probably agree, the status quo is not good enough for consumers or for innovation. I think it's absolutely imperative we have these clear rules of the road, both to protect users, but also hold companies accountable and give responsible businesses the certainty to build here in America. You asked for examples. 80% of Ripple's hiring for those 4 years was non-US. Even today, our second largest office is London because of that legacy that has shifted under the leadership of this president and this administration, the CFTC and SEC. I think we all can agree that the technologies represented at the tables here can make moving money faster, more efficient, and more accessible. But we have to have clarity to unlock that potential responsibly. So thank you for your leadership, and thank you everyone for being here today to help achieve that.
Brad Garlinghouse in the flesh right now. They're having a conversation in Washington, D.C. And yesterday, we saw him at the White House in the Oval Office with President Donald J. Trump. Right now, they are under the CFTC umbrella, and everyone is trying to make it happen. Everyone there is trying to get that Clarity Act passed, and it will pass, guys. It has to. And what we're seeing right now on the screen is people taking profits, making some of them want to get some dough, they want to get some money after such a long time. You pump from $1 to $1.35 in less than 48 hours. From $1 to $1.35 in less than 48 hours, and you don't want people to eat? You don't want people to sell and take some profits? Come on, somebody. Let them. Some go, some come. But if you do this, that looks much better, huh? When you open up, one big candle, two big candles. If we get one more big candle, that'll be the 3 white soldier for the daily pattern here for the price of XRP. Just look at this, man. We're basically back to prices that we had at the beginning of summer 2026. Look at this. What you're seeing on the screen, what I'm showing you here. Let me bring my marker. All of this, my friend, all of this was pain, hell, Hades, basically. It was just boring, collapsing, bankruptcies, scams, frauds, the worst right here. But thankfully, after a while, I think some people bought the dip. Did you buy the dip, my friend? Because if you did, right now you're so happy. I think you are. And there's going to be more conversations here in the CFTC inaugural meeting, meaning that there's going to be more. We're going to have the CFTCs, the SECs, the FOMCs, the White House meetings. I can already tell that once Clarity Act passes, crypto after crypto after crypto, and that'll be good news after good news. Some bad news, but mostly good news. We're going to hear the anti-crypto army, naysayers, haters, Elizabeth Warren, and Chuck Schumer, and whoever else, I don't care. We're not leaving. Drop a like, everybody. Consider subscribing. This is the time. Get everybody on board. Get a chance to win 5,001 XRP right now. By now, you know. Sign up with BTCC. Start trading, of course. And I have some friends who oftentimes have need some help. We help you out when it comes to BTCC, right? There's always, things could happen, but mostly, I haven't experienced anything wrong. And if I do, I tell them and they get on to me. So just FY. And we're feeling better. We're feeling better. Let's go ahead and bring this one on. Let's go back to the 15 minutes. Yes, just like that. Perfect. How y'all doing, everybody? Welcome. What do we have here? Watching crypto pump while you're at work, knowing you won't stay there forever. Oh, it's so funny.
Bam, bam, bam. We long XRP today. Bam, bam, bam. I put 100x on it. Bam, bam. Bam, bam, bam. We long XRP today. Bam, bam, bam. I put 100x on it.
XR, always with the XRP art. I love it. Look at this one.
I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening. I can't. I just want to say one thing.
To all XRP holders. Yo, family.
Okay, no more because I'm going to get copyrighted. I don't want to get, we don't want any strikes whatsoever. We already know how it feels. But you get the point. That is Monica, bro. That is Monica. No way. That's so fun, bro. Monica. We love Monica. Guys, it's going to get good. It's going to get good. XRP, buckle up.
Buckle up!
Buckle up, everybody. Please buckle up. What is this?
Still reconciling your balances.
Again, the music. I don't want to get copyrighted. That's good, fam. That's so good. People are happy, and they've been happy for a while. And Donald J. Trump, love him or hate him, but so far so good. Crypto is moving, and right now we're seeing XRP price breaking down the level of support that we had there in the Bollinger Bands. Now 124 from 130 what? 134, 130, almost 135. That's a good one, man. That's a good one. They're going to be coming back anytime in a few more minutes. That's pretty good. Guys who call Bitcoin to 40,000 right now.
Para desespero do Fernando Diniz. Essa é a imagem do Diniz, Pedrinho.
Where are the haters? Where are all those haters, guys? It happens. Me pretending I don't care, so my trade finally goes green. Your family needs you. Don't leave your children behind. Your journey isn't finished. I'll start pumping. Oh, please. This crypto space is the best. This crypto space is the best. Don't you know? Pump it up. We gotta pump it up. Indeed, everybody. You know it. I know it. It's time to get clarity over the finish line. It's true. Go ahead and take a look at some of the Q&A and questions and comments right here. Welcome to, we had over 2,000 people, and for sure, you know, it's a really good time, you know, for everybody in crypto because things are waking up, and I'm honestly predicting that we're no longer going to go under like this 70, 80, 90 cents XRP. Just wouldn't make any sense. I think the time is if you see some red on the screen, as you can tell, some red light therapy. If you see something, guys, don't leave it unnoticed. Don't leave it unnoticed because that is a chance for a lot of people to finally come into the market. Oh, you want to buy when everything's pumping, when people are buying $2 XRP, $3 XRP, over 150,000 BTC, over 5,000, 7,000 Ethereum, ETH. If that's you, that's fine. That's your money. It's your life. Do whatever you want. But all I'm saying is that is not the right way of doing crypto. The right way of doing crypto is buying in the hell, buying in the struggle, buying in the pain, buying in the blood on the streets, buying when everybody hates you, buying when everybody calls you names, buying when everybody wants to destroy you, buying during the bankruptcies, buying when people are calling recession, people are calling back the worst, sell it, drop it, dump it. It's garbage. It's a scam. That's when you go all in. You buy and smell and devour the fear. You drink it. And you don't look back. Simple as that. Buy the red, sell the green. 100%. Oh, the pain zone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You just reminded me something. The pain zone is where we live. Come on, baby. Gimme, gimme, gimme. Here. But I need the... I'll find it. I have it right here. Wait. No, it's not photos. It's videos. Where is it? I have it. I'll find it. Here it comes. Here. This is where you buy your XRP. Right here is when you buy the XRP.
Just shut up and let me enjoy this pain.
Welcome to the pain zone. It's where we live.
When I'm hurt, I love it. I love that feeling because it's real.
You need to love pain.
Just shut up and let me enjoy this pain.
That's where you buy. So when you buy right here, you can enjoy this. Right there, guys. Right there. That's what you can enjoy. If you buy in the pain zone, guys, right? With Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson. What's going on, Ivan? Thanks so much, brother. Welcome. The money.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
We just need Clarity Act, everybody. We just need Clarity Act. All right. Ready for session number 2 coming up? That should be starting anytime now. How you doing, guys? Yeah, we're funny. We got to be funny. Come on. All right. So the poll, we got over 1,000 votes, 47%. What happened to Oscar's face? What is the right answer, guys? XRP price melted his face? Was it the XRP price? It was just too good to be true? Did the XRP haters beat him? Just all those people, the sellers, got the best of him. How about the potty? The XRP potty just got him sunburn. It was just too good, right? Or, well, answer, I just got a CO2 laser skin treatment, right? But since there's new people coming up, right, there's always this question coming up, and I'm like, well, let's just have fun a little bit. But yeah, it's all fine. I'm great. I'm going to look even better, praise God, in a few weeks. But yeah, just a nice skin treatment that I just came back from the clinic, and I was like, how do I look? How do I look? And Perla, she's like, so awesome. You're doing great. Keep going. So I still have to add, have some Aquaphor all over my face. I was doing it at the very beginning of this stream. So yeah, it's looking good. It's looking good. But we got to keep protecting. No sun, no exercise, no sweating.
Ladies and gentlemen, session 2 will begin shortly. If you could please find your seats.
Perfect. Everybody drop those likes. Welcome aboard. And to all the 1,500 people, lock in. We're ready for session 2. And I'm going to go ahead and grab something too because I'm hungry. Coming up, coming up. Fresh face, 100%, bro. I mean, I think we'll look different in a good way. Melting faces. Actually, this reminds me that I need to... So my AC right now is at a very decent... Guys, is this okay, or should I need to go down? 78, bro. What do you think?
Please grab your seats.
Let's go
Keep
down,
ourselves
right?
on time.
Let's go down a little bit. 78. Yeah, I think 76. We're back. We're back. Beautiful. Brad is supposed to be speaking again soon, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Shall we? All right, we're going to get going. Grab your seats. Thank you all. Welcome back. The second session we plan to tackle is AI and the regulatory framework around AI. And of course, as we think about artificial intelligence, we should start by framing it as an innovation supercycle. For decades, the capital markets and the derivatives markets have evolved through gradual innovation, but today, the pace of change is breathtaking and approaching exponential. It's difficult for markets and regulators to keep pace. Financial institutions, many around this room today, are deploying generative AI across trading, compliance, surveillance, customer service, and risk management to help manage this change. At the same time, we're beginning to see the emergence of agentic finance, where autonomous systems execute financial decisions with limited human intervention. Now, this represents tremendous opportunities, but also raises some important questions regarding accountability, market readiness, customer protections, operational resilience, and market integrity. So let's start with this very basic question, which is, which AI developments do you think are likely to have the greatest impact on CFTC markets? And what risks would you advise the Commission on around AI that they should be most concerned on? We'll open it up for discussion. Brian?
Yeah, so I think it's really exciting to see AI and financial services coming together, this agentic finance concept, or what we call AI-fi sometimes. There's a number of areas that I see it intersecting. So one, of course, is that these frontier models like Mythos and through Project Glasswing, I think have been really great at helping spot vulnerabilities in our financial system. And maybe a bit of a contrarian view, I think it's going to favor the defenders, not the attackers. I think there's a conventional wisdom that the attackers are going to gain all these skills and it's going to be mayhem. It's been great that financial service companies have gotten access to some of these models through Project Glasswing before the attackers have gotten it, and it's given time for remediation. It also favors the defenders in the sense that you can use these models to scan your internal code base, whereas an attacker would be typically scanning it from the outside and just hitting public endpoints. And so if every piece of code that our teams are writing gets reviewed by a frontier model before it goes to production, I think it'll actually net improve the security. And then, the other exciting thing that's happening is I think stablecoins will be a default payment rail for AI in this agentic economy. So increasingly people are using AI agents to get work done on their behalf. And they're going to need to pay for goods and services. They're going to need to spin up sub-teams of other agents. And the traditional financial system, it doesn't do as well with very small and really real-time and cross-border transactions. So these AI agents might be spending a few cents, and it might get settled every second or less on chain. And so I think that's for the payments in the agentic economy, I think stablecoins are going to be a powerful rail. And then on the trading side, what's great is that these AI agents can actually act as advisors to an entire category of customer who, previously, if you didn't have a certain net worth, you wouldn't really get assigned like an RIA from a large traditional firm. And, the average AI agent, it's not necessarily going to be beating the market, like, be the best quant out there or something like that, but it could probably do as well or better than your average RIA out there in the market and help create financial literacy for an entire, even if someone has $100 in their account or something, they could get access to this to learn about portfolio allocation and dollar cost averaging and tax loss harvesting and concepts like that. I've heard there are some concerns out there about market manipulation from AI agents trading in the market. And I guess my reaction to that is that algorithmic trading or bots, this is really nothing new, right? I mean, there's been hedge funds for decades using we used to call it machine learning. Before that, we called it statistics. Now we call it AI. In many ways, it's just one continuum of the same concept. And, it's hard for me to imagine that there would be if there was one AGI that everyone in the world used and it recommended the same thing to everyone at the same moment, I guess, you could get sort of this herd behavior. But real life is just much more complicated than that. I mean, first of all, there's going to be lots of different frontier models with lots of different companies recommending various things. So it'll be a diverse ecosystem. And then even if you were to use the same AI model in one company, it's going to customize its advice to each of the clients based on their risk tolerance and what portfolio they're targeting. And so the AI model is not going to give the same advice or sell this, buy this to the different clients, even if the same model in the same firm. So I think some of these fears are overblown is the long story short. It's true already today that if the Fed cuts rates, 1 million people trade on all that information right away at the same time. I don't see a world where AI is going to create something super different than that. It's going to be a diverse set of recommendations from a diverse set of models in a diverse set of companies. And there's this kind of like temptation sometimes to think about the worst case scenario and we have to prevent it. Well, or some people call that the precautionary principle. I think it's better to kind of wait to see what issues are real before we go out and try to solve them, because many of them may end up being boogeymen that never materialize, and there might be a different thing that pops up that was a real risk that none of us even contemplated.
Can I ask on the cybersecurity risk, like what would you recommend, with Mythos? I know there's Project Glasswing, which the private sector is looking to help think through those types of attacks. But what advice would you give the CFTC? Is it convening power that Frank talked about, where bringing the CISOs together from the industry to talk about these things? Is it guidance? Where can the CFTC help on that front?
You asking me or anybody?
Anybody. I guess Vlad or Tyler. Start with Vlad.
Yeah, I think Brian mentioned that the defensive capabilities of the AI agents are superior to offensive. First of all, I think we've seen lots of big cybersecurity issues in the industry. Every week you kind of hear about another protocol sort of getting breached or some functional correctness issue leading to money being drained. And now you have AI agents that are doing like pretty extreme offensive cybersecurity work. I think there is this cat and mouse game where is basically the status quo. You have Mythos or powerful models, and you're hoping that you get them before the adversaries get them and can probe your actual code base. But I do think there's a better solution, which is, some folks here have actually been looking into this, formal verification of software, so you can actually prove that the software is correct. And I think it's in many ways the end game. Like, AI is becoming really good at this stuff, and you can actually prove that your smart contract isn't gonna double spend or do any of these really difficult things. It's sort of the same techniques that would be used to make sure that microchips have correct behavior, or your guidance system for a missile doesn't go haywire. And I think as the cost goes down, you'll start seeing it be much more feasible for these to get into domains like financial services, like derivatives trading, where frankly, up until recently, it would have just been too expensive to require everyone to do it. So I would look into that and seeing if, as the technology gets there, you guys impose more and more stringent requirements for whether code is formally verified and not just audited by hand, and the business continuity requirements that you have FCMs conform to can be kind of tightened up a little bit so that they're relevant in the modern age. And it's not just things like what address do you go to if there's a hurricane in the zip code of your data center sort of thing. I think that could be significantly tightened.
Tyler, anything to add on cybersecurity?
Yeah, I would just add that potentially a way where regulators like the CFTC could help out is connecting projects with the frontier labs that are maybe small, or the foundations or security researchers that want to help harden networks and maybe can't pick up the phone to Anthropic or OpenAI to get access to these models. A project called Zcash has modeled how to use AI effectively to find vulnerabilities and patch them and then harden the network. And Zcash is also pioneering formal verification as well, but it's a larger project. It's over a decade old, and the smaller projects may not have that connectivity to the Frontier Labs. So to the extent that you can facilitate that connectivity, that could be a great way where regulators could help security researchers get these AI frontier models into the hands of the right people in advance of the adversaries.
All right, I think I have Tom next.
Thanks, Walt. Thank you to the chair, the CFTC for convening this. Just a couple thoughts about AI in our markets. Has been intimated already. Utilization of systematic means of execution certainly isn't new. It's happening today. It's been happening for a long time. AI is a new tool that may or may not be better in certain instances with respect to that type of execution. And today, attribution to systematic execution engines of any kind really doesn't exist. So the question here might be, will AI accelerate the use of these means of execution, expand them into other places that perhaps we hadn't seen them used? And those are all good questions to be considered. But ultimately, the regulator today doesn't know if it came from someone's Excel spreadsheet with a script attached to it, or if someone went on an AI tool and generated a model and it runs in a high-speed fashion. So I think we should consider that it's the behavior that needs to be looked at, maybe less so than the tool. And one of the aspects of behavior is, where did this order come from? Where was this quote submitted from? So consideration to whether or not identification for systematic models might be something to be incorporated. Now, I don't want to give fear to anyone here that's been around long enough to remember Reg AT and that enjoyable experience and conversation from some time ago. But if we strip away some of the things that were less well received, such as share your source code with the regulator, which I am not supportive of, and I don't think that really adds any value at all, the idea that automated means of execution have their own interactions in the market and should potentially have some guardrails put around it with respect to identification and attribution, so that a human, an organization, et cetera, is ultimately responsible, is probably a concept that requires a bit more conversation and thoughtfulness. So I think it's unlikely that any regulator can keep up with the pace of change that AI is going to generate in terms of new models, new code, new means of execution. But holding models accountable for the same sort of behavioral requirements in markets that we hold everyone accountable for today is I think, a pretty easy principle to agree to. So just some suggestions that perhaps we think about: focus on the behavior. If we need new means of identifying and attributing responsibility and ownership, great. But attempts to get into the weeds on the latest AI model and what have you is probably going to be an effort not worth the time.
In the CFTC's principles-based outcomes regulatory structure is good. It's an outcomes-based regulatory structure. It's sort of technology agnostic, really. But Raghu, I think I have you next.
Yes, I want to talk about the other side of AI, which is the compute and the data center side, which is very, very relevant to the CFTC. I think Chairman Selig said this in the opening remarks. Compute probably, perhaps, is the greatest commodity that ever is. If you look at what's happening, US companies are investing $670 billion just this 1 year in building data centers. $670 billion. And most of these investments, we don't know what the price elasticity of H200 or the GPU is going to be in 2 years. So without knowing the price point or the user demand in 2-3 years, we're making, as a country, through private enterprise, $670 billion in. So I think there's a remarkable opportunity for CFTC to actually define compute as an asset class. Now, as some of the frontier labs are going to public markets, for the first time, they're getting questions in their IPO in terms of, hey, how are you thinking about the data center spend and hedging this data center compute? Now, as FalconX, what we're seeing is, we're seeing some of these frontier labs and the data centers come and ask, could you write hedging or insurance products around the data center compute? But the more CFTC can guide us in terms of price discovery, fast tracking some of the regulation around compute, that'll actually make AI as an industry much more safer in the US. And that could help with AI in the US leading worldwide as well. So very excited about hearing other thoughts on the compute side and regulating that as a market.
think we're going to have a few more comments on that today. Arjun, I have you next.
Thank you very much. You know, just kind of hearing everybody, we use the word AI, like the label, and then all of a sudden it's like the scary boogeyman. And it reminds me of crypto being the boogeyman. And it reminds, or now we're going to have the next topic in a little bit, talking about prediction markets as a boogeyman. And, you know, I think it's important that we regulate the function of an AI agent or what they're going to do, not the label of AI. And I think it's a very dangerous road when we start talking about AI as something completely different. Yes, it's awesome, compute infrastructure, there's a lot more innovation that's going to happen, there's a lot more throughput, more transactions. But what are we really talking about here? What we're talking about here is that the average individual, sorry, Don, I know you're right next to me, but everything that made Don successful over the last, 30, 40 years, we can put that in the hands of every individual, or they can have an army of people or agents or entities working on their behalf. That should be scary for larger, older institutions, because that means you're inherently making the technology that they built over the last centuries inherently deflationary for all of us. So I think it's really important. Like, we should not be regulating the function. We should be regulating, we should not regulate the function. We should only regulate the label.
Thank you, Arjun. Mike?
Yeah, actually, I think we often look for what we should do from a regulatory perspective. On this one, I think actually AI regulation would hurt the industry massively. We need to have the tools. The tools are going to change faster than we will be able to adopt. And until there's like a specific thing, not just a boogeyman, we should not touch it. Second thing I wanted to highlight, we could end up where, the most common failure is OPSEC rather than like cryptographic failure. Individuals are at risk when they're known to have digital assets. These are bearer instruments, and whether those are going to be people at institutions or individuals like retail, want to make sure that the regulators are also very aware of what's happened in France. France has had the IRS collect information with specific amounts of Bitcoin that are held, on behalf of people. So you have a specific list of here's the names, here's the amount, here's their address. And that's been stolen a couple of times, one on an insider job, the other one on some sort of a hacking attempt. So a way that you can help us against AI is actually to make sure that we're not required to collect unnecessary honeypots of information, which of course would be super desirable to an AI bot or a hacker or any type of adversary. All right, thank you.
All right, Don.
Yeah, so as far as what can we do to reduce cyber risk and the risks associated with these innovations in AI, I think one important step is to encourage this administration to let the AI labs, the frontier labs, release their newest models as soon as they can. That reduces risk. That reduces risk to the markets. It reduces hacking risk. I think that that's super important. I agree with Brian that we don't need a new regulatory environment to address new risks in the market activity caused by AI and AI bots. Our team was heavily involved, it seems like 20 years ago, but maybe it wasn't quite that long ago, in working on best practices for automated tradings. And those controls were designed to keep markets safe regardless of the technology used. And they've proven very effective. We should evolve the framework for AI, not reinvent it. And quite frankly, I'm not seeing anything that needs to be evolved right now. I think that those frameworks, those best practices are just as applicable today with this new technology as they were when automated trading first came up. Lastly, on compute futures, we are in a race for AI supremacy with China. Risk management instruments in the compute space are essential to reducing the cost of capital, which in turn will give the US a competitive advantage. Silicon Data has successfully created indices which are robust, well-constructed, and not readily susceptible to manipulation. They leverage data from numerous neoclouds as well as from its sister company Compute Exchange. They do not rely on a small number of hyperscaler pricing. It is a mistake to delay the launch of these futures by subjecting them to a lengthy comment period. And I think that the self-certification process, where the DCM that wants to list the contract, is the appropriate mechanism. I don't think that we need to reinvent the wheel here, again, just because we have a new technology and a new market. Thank you.
All right, Andre.
Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Chairman. On the cybersecurity front, I do agree with some of the statements already made, and especially by Brian, that it's both an opportunity to strengthen. So in addition to being an incoming threat, the actual utilization of it can make the organization stronger than it was before by utilizing all those capabilities. I think the thing that we could look at together is how do we ensure that everyone has that access, or how do we make sure that everyone has the ability? Because it's one thing to be, operationally ready, and we heard about people that had early access to Project Glasswing, but there were also others that didn't have access that are part of this ecosystem. So how do we ensure coverage? How do we ensure that there is a minimum requirement in terms of maintaining this resiliency across the board? In terms of whether we require, additional guidance or more like a regime, we already have a lot of existing principles. We already have model risk management, third-party risk, all things that are expected from companies like ours to support, and a lot of the AI already falls into this. So it's probably more clarifying how does that apply to AI in this particular use case. But bringing groups together like you're doing today, I think is the way to go as well.
I think I have Tushar next, but I wanted to throw one concept out there, if there's any thoughts on this, but it's around accountability. I mean, regulatory frameworks are built on holding people accountable for wrongdoing, whether they harm markets or harm customers, but that's being challenged by decentralized finance and by autonomous systems. And I think regulators and even folks that are advising policymakers struggle with how do we hold DeFi, these systems accountable, or is there a different approach that we need to think about in order to make sure that they're being accountable to the law and regulations of the agency? So as we go around and speak about this, if you have thoughts about that, this is an education opportunity because a lot of people are struggling with that concept. So let's go with Tushar.
Thank you. My name is Tushar from Multicoin Capital, and I want to thank you for putting this all together. I want to just echo everyone. It's a breath of fresh air to be able to engage in constructive dialogue rather than try to fight previous administrations. I have 3 points that I'd like to make about AI here. The first, and this goes back to what Peter said in the first session, I think what the CFTC can offer is some sort of safe harbor or innovation exemption for new types of markets, specifically thinking about the new compute derivative markets. Multicoin, my firm, is an investment firm active across private and public markets, and we are seeing a lot of new entrepreneurial ideas on how to structure these compute derivatives. They don't look exactly like traditional commodities. There are some very notable differences, and something that makes it difficult for us as an investor is, okay, you have this idea, and now how are you going to implement this in a way that is compliant and can actually serve the market? And if there was an innovation exemption for these new ideas, then we could see them tested out at a smaller scale before committing the capital to scale it up and do so in the fully compliant manner. So I would strongly urge an innovation exemption for that purpose. Second point that I would urge the Commission on is using AI tools to stress test the market. We are seeing, increasing amounts of leverage, concentration, and that can drive some very scary effects in the market. We've seen that in crypto. We've seen that in traditional markets. We saw that with things like, Archegos from a couple years ago, and the derivatives that were used there. And it was done so in an opaque way that made it hard for the market to understand all the hidden leverage. I think that the transparency that DeFi offers, which can be done in a confidential way where only the regulator and the market participants themselves see that activity. You don't have to broadcast your order to the market to be front run. But having that transparency in real time for the CFTC, I think can dramatically reduce that type of risk. And instead of being reactive afterwards, the Commission can be proactive in managing that risk. And then my third and final point, pretty different, but AI has been a great wealth creation event. However, that wealth creation has been almost entirely in private markets. And what we are seeing is we see retail and just regular American citizens want to participate in this wealth creation, and they're unable to do so. And they end up oftentimes falling prey to scams and fake special purpose vehicles that don't actually own any of the underlying. They're paying excessive fees. And I think one thing the Commission can consider to help these citizens is something like pre-IPO perps that would give those users a regulated and safe way to get price exposure to these private companies without those companies necessarily having to go public in order for them to do so. And I think that that would allow Americans to share in this unprecedented wealth creation in a way that is not possible today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tushar. So I have Vladimir, Peter, Joe, Scott, and Carla, I think, left on my list here. And then we're going to try to turn to prediction markets. So, Vladimir?
All right, my friends. That is everybody but Brad Garlinghouse, what I wanted to hear and what I wanted to show you too. We heard him speak in the first session. Right now they're talking about AI. And your boy is tired after 2 hours live. So I think it was so good and so worth it. You got over 1,000, 2,000 people, guys. And I just want to say, this was good. I hope you liked it. And yesterday, good day for crypto. Today, good day for crypto. And as you can tell, some have taken profits, which is okay. Taking profits, totally fine. Price of crypto, price of XRP came down from 134 to 122. Let's go ahead and close this. Nice. Go ahead and do 4 hours right now. Very good. Look at this beauty. This is XRP right now. I wonder, what's next? Are we going to start dropping all the way down as we wait for clarity, or was this the beginning of something better? We just gotta wait a little bit, but so far we made money, we traded, we'll continue doing it, and all eyes on XRP, because hey, I think the markets are finally waking up that they gotta prepare. They could sell, but they still have to buy before clarity comes. Guys, there you have it. I'm tired. I'm going to go ahead and relax a bit, bringing you the latest and all the meetings. This was good. This is just the preparation for Clarity Act, God willing. by the time that we have to stream the Clarity Act cloture vote on September 15, you no longer will see me like this. By then, we'll be much better in a different scenario. There you have it, everybody. TJ, JB, Ghost, Chipper, Sacred, and everybody here. Thanks for coming in, guys. I'm out. I'm tired. I'll relax. You know the links. You know the prices. You know the XRP. You know all the affiliated links down there for you to make some money and trade with us. You be blessed, and I'll see you next time. To all the new subscribers, to all the donors and the members, thank you for being here. What a time. Time for me to sleep a bit and chillax. You all be safe. Peace. Let's go. We did it, everybody. That was good. 122 XRP. Don't leave. Not selling at this price. I'm not selling at this price. While my face is destroyed. But it's okay. It's gonna be better. Bye, guys. Be safe.